So now we're just going to briefly go over the law and what actually allows you to process evidence legally at a crime scene. So under the Police Services Act, it actually says that officers have common law authority to investigate and enforce law. Crime and law, of course. There is no actual legal search requirements to search a crime scene unless the offender is known to have some control or property interest in it. This can include maybe like a corner store owner, but then if he or she calls the police in order to investigate a break-in, we'll say, he or she is giving us permission to go into that premise and then search and the premise for evidence and process it and do our jobs that way. So there is no actual search requirements in terms of enforcing law and processing a crime scene. So you guys are open to being able to do your jobs that way, just in order to process it efficiently. We want to be doing everything lawfully. So that is the laws in terms of how to process a scene and what our search requirements are. So now just sort of our last part of the brief, how to go over a crime scene as the first officer on scene. We're going to be talking about how to deal with media, so public relations. This can either be very good or very bad for you, depending on how you deal with it and how your colleagues deal with it. And I'm going to explain why in a second here. There could be three kind of rules on what you want to do and what you don't want to do with media, and also some ways that media will actually help you in your investigation. So let's go over those points right now. So the first and biggest rule with dealing with the media is never lie or knowingly provide false information. This can be very, very bad because it can actually come back and ruin the investigation and ruin your credibility. So it is very, very important that you're telling the truth on the information you're allowed to tell the media. That is important as well. You'll sort of have guidelines on what you are and what you will not be able to tell them, but that doesn't mean you want to make things up and tell them what they want to hear. You always only want to tell facts on what you're allowed to tell the media. Secondly, you never want to ignore the media's request for information. Now, this is very important. It doesn't really sound like a lot just to say, no, we don't want to talk about anything at this time. Because it will sort of force the media to create their own story, which is not what we want. Because then that's when a lot of untrue facts can come forward because the media decided to do their own investigation to put out a story. That will just create more problems for us later on because we'll have to then go out and deny most likely the things that they came up with in their own investigation, and it just creates more work for us. So don't ever ignore a request for media's request for information just because we want to be very open with what we're doing. Just so that doesn't happen, we want to do our own investigation uninterrupted, and the media, they're just there to do their job and collect information, so it makes it easier for both parties if we just do what we're supposed to do. It gives the media a story or something to put out without having to go digging, and then it sort of covers us as well. We're doing our job and telling the media what we can tell them. Third rule, never demonstrate favoritism to one media source. This is just because it could give an unfair edge to another media source, and you don't want to sort of gain any advantage to one media outlet. They're all doing the same job, doing the same story, and you don't want to sort of pose any favoritism on them. You are to sort of let them respect their competitors and give them an equal opportunity on a story that they can publish. Is just fair that way, to sort of give equal information to everyone. So those are three ways to deal with media, kind of do's and don'ts, and I will be explaining now three ways the media can actually help you with an investigation. The tips on how media can actually help you with an investigation all stem around public awareness. So obviously in the media, people are going to be watching or reading depending on the media source. And that is very important, just because public awareness can actually help you catch the person who did it, or just make people more aware of the crime. So that could be getting tips from people who may have seen something they didn't really think much of, but then they can relate it back to it if they saw something on the media. Relevant information is always good from people on the street, sort of just helping us and giving us some tips, but also to help prevent crime in the future. So if something like that has happened at a convenience store, we'll say, another convenience store might just do something to prevent that in the future, but also people will be more aware of that event occurring as well. So it's all around public awareness. You want to sort of get the public aware, so it's fighting against crime as well, but also you're getting relevant tips and you're making the environment a little bit safer as well, because people are going to be aware, like I said, and they're going to be openly and actively sort of trying to help you figure out what happened and who did it, because nobody really wants that happening around their community on a continual basis. So people will go out of their way to help you, and a lot of the time it is helpful, but there obviously will be some that aren't very helpful, but you just have to sort of filter through that stuff and you will figure it out more often than not with the public help than you will on your own. So that is a great media. How media will actually help you is you get the public involved to sort of help you catch whoever did it or figure out what happened. So there you go. Now we've went over what to do when you first get there, who you should be calling, an action plan that you guys should be putting together with everybody who was there, what to be doing with the people that come on scene, the legalities around being on the scene and searching evidence and being able to search a premise. You've learned how to deal with witnesses and suspects that could or could not be on the scene. You've also dealt with how to deal with media as well, which is very important, and how to take proper notes. So there you go. You guys are now experts in how to be the first officer on scene, and how to sort of deal with that. So thank you for watching the video, and hopefully you guys learned something, and hopefully I helped you be able to maybe do your first crime scene in the near future.